down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. It's an open mic night for photographers. Get ready for 60 minutes of your photography questions in real time with answers from your host, Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, welcome to another live episode of TogChat. I'm Joe Edelman, your host for the next hour while we talk about anything to do with photography. So first of all, gang, thank you all for being here to spend another Monday night with me. We got a lot of people in here already. DB Kelly, James, Cathal, Al B, David G, Frank Beckham, Doreen is here, Sven's here, Guy, JR's here, Kat's here, all the way from Las Vegas. I can't wait to get to Vegas later this month. So listen, gang, as always, I'm ready. I hope you're ready. I hope you guys have spent some time shooting in the last week. Remember, for every minute you spend on YouTube, not just on my channel, for every channel, you owe me 2 minutes, camera in hand, taking pictures. That's the rule for 2018. So some quick business, and then I have some cool business, okay? So while everybody's getting in here, make sure you type in, let me know you're here, say where you're from, all that cool stuff. As always, gang, please do the usual stuff. I know it gets old, but hit that thumbs up. It's greatly appreciated. Subscribe to the channel so that you get the notifications. Lots of cool stuff coming. Social media, I'm most active on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And of course, comments are always appreciated. So I want to start out actually, and I want to tell you guys, oh, here, wait, one more thing. Sorry, there's a new video. Can't forget the new video. Do you have a problem with double chins? I have a problem with double chins. This is how you get rid of double chins. So I have had people asking me for quite a while to do videos about posing. So I'm stubborn. Shocker, right? So here's the thing about videos about posing and books about posing and all that kind of stuff. The problem that we frequently run into when we do videos and books about posing is that we create all these rules. And the idea is that you're supposed to make people fit these shapes. And that's when you learn about things like C curves and S curves with posing and, the right way to hold the hands and to hold the head. And the bottom line is, remember a couple of things, really important things. Number one, pose. It's a 4-letter word. Remember what your mama taught you. No 4-letter words, right? Number two, generally when you say the word pose to someone, that gives them the idea, don't move, hold still. That's the connotation. Even though that's not necessarily the definition, that's the connotation. So I just put the link to the posing video in the chat window there for you guys so that you can check it out, bookmark it for later if you want to make sure that you see it. But for me, I prefer to not pose, but to direct. And I work with essentially creating a mood, creating a tone. I will sometimes create a choreography and have my subject repeat some things. But people have been begging me for a while now to do videos about posing. So I wanted to try this video that I just did this weekend to put a little different twist on things. And instead of having a model in front of the camera and razzle-dazzling you with all these before and afters and all that stuff, it's just me. I'm doing the poses, I'm doing the movements, and really what I want you to do with these videos is go try it yourself. Because here's the problem, and all of you run into this. I've run into this. You see a tutorial about posing, you read a book about posing, and you study all this stuff, and you got it shoved into your head, and you're convinced like, okay, cool, like this was a really good book, or this was a really good video. I learned a lot, right? And then when you have the camera in your hand, and you try to remember all that stuff, you can't remember it. It's just overwhelming. And you forget half of what's there, and it's a mess. And the only way you really learn this stuff is through visual experiences. In other words, actually trying it. It's a lot like the egg video. Remember the egg? You've got to actually do the exercise. So what I'm hoping that you will do, and we're going to tackle these kind of a body part at a time, is I'm hoping you'll take the tips, and there's really only 3 tips and then some suggestions for how you communicate. Take those tips in that video and try them on a subject just to see what it does. Pay close attention to the differences because the differences are subtle, but they make a big difference. That way, you're going to truly learn those posing techniques and they will have a much more positive impact going forward. So, I could do tons of before and after and all that kind of stuff. I could put a pretty girl in front of the camera, in which case you're not really going to pay attention to the story and what I'm trying to teach. or I can sit there and I can teach it to you and have you go try it. What I'm going to include in these posing series, and I'm not going to do one every week, I'm going to mix them in over the next couple of months, is also a lot of the banter, so to speak, that I use, the communication back and forth between the model, because that's another piece. I get a lot of feedback from people saying, you know, I just have a really hard time communicating with my subject to make them understand what I want. And believe me, it's really easy to blow that whole thing because obviously you understand it, it's in your head. That doesn't mean that your way of communicating it is going to make sense for your subject. So you've got to kind of be thinking about how your subject's going to process that information. So more of those to come, but definitely check that out. I started with double chins because that's one that a lot of us struggle with, okay? So I've been telling you guys for a couple of weeks now that one of my goals / projects for 2018 and TogChat is to get some sponsors to provide prizes. And I got to tell you, much to my initial surprise, it's gone so much better than I expected. I've got a ton of companies that are willing to participate, and I've got some really cool prizes. So our first sponsor is Hoodman, and I'll tell you why I went to Hoodman first. It's because I use their products. This is my old Hoodman. This is one of the original Hoodmans. It's solid. It's one piece. It does have an adjustable diopter. It's got a rubber lanyard on it. Came with a pretty cool little leather case. The idea with these things is what they're designed for is when you're shooting in bright lighting conditions or in daylight, or even for that matter, if you need a little help with your eyesight and need things enlarged, you lay this over the LCD on your camera screen, lay it over the LCD, and you can view a closer image. Now, the problem with the original Hoodman for me is that LCD screens kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which is a good problem, right? But then I couldn't cover the whole screen. Now, I've used this thing religiously. I wouldn't get rid of it. And, you know, I just never took the time to go buy a new one. So recently, I found out the Hoodman made a big design change. And I actually did this a while ago. I'm just slow to find out. I'll be completely honest with you. But the design change is awesome. So first, the simple piece. They added a little tripod socket here on the bottom, which is really, really, really handy for being able to set up video gear if you're going to do like a video rig. But more importantly, the Hoodman has two little snaps, one on each side, so that in the future, if LCD screens on the cameras get bigger, you buy a new base that fits your camera's LCD and you snap your top over top of it like so. Okay, comes with a lanyard, also comes with a cool little, you know, pouch, all that kind of stuff. Love these. Outside, I really struggle personally with bright sunlight. I always have. My eyes are super, super sensitive to really bright light. So for me, these things are a lifesaver. Yeah, when you're working with EVFs like I do now with the Olympus cameras, it is nice that I can put my eye to the viewfinder and I can see a finished image, which I couldn't with, you know, my Nikon DSLRs. But it's so much nicer to be able to put this to the LCD screen and see a bigger version. So another Hoodman product that I use, and be totally straight with you, I don't use it quite the way Hoodman designed it, but I love this product. They have this product called, in fact, here, let me show you the one in the package. It's called the Hoodman Link. So basically what it is, it's a belt clip that you can clip onto your belt, and it's a retractable cord. Real simple, right? So by design, they designed it so that you take the lanyard off of your Hoodman, and then you hook it onto here, and you can carry your Hoodman on your belt, and then just pull it out when you need it. Great concept. I will admit, I'm very comfortable having the Hoodman on the lanyard around my neck. So what I use the Hoodman Link for is my light meter. Even when I'm working in the studio, I love this. I have my Sekonic, it's the 308. I have this attached to the Link. It's long enough that I can reach from my hip to my subject, take my meter reading, and literally just retract it, and it's on my hip all the time. Because if you're like me, gang, I'm one of those people that will take a meter reading, put the meter down, and then the next time I go to do the meter reading, I don't remember where the heck I put the meter down, right? So that's a problem. So I'm a big fan of Hoodman, and Hoodman is a fan of what I'm doing, and they were very gracious to not only provide me with some HoodLoupe packages and Hoodman links, but they have also given me a whole bunch of Hoodman lens cleanse sets. Lens cleanse, if you remember, those are the cleaning sets that I showed you in the lens cleaning video. And they helped me work out a deal with Hunt's Photo in New England. If you don't win the prize, you can get $20 off. That's $20, not 20%. So it's actually a little more than 20%. You can get $20 off the cost of one of these Hoodman setups by following the link. So here's how this works. I'm going to walk you through the whole process since this is the first time we're doing it, okay? So I know a lot of you get really upset when I don't get right into photo talk, but come on guys, this is free prizes, right? So let's go through this so that everybody understands. I put the link on the bottom of the screen so that you can see it. All you got to do, and the link is also in the description below the video, but you are simply going to go to tog.chat/win, and that is going to take you to this page right here, okay? So this is on my website at joeedelman.com, and basically what you've got here is the ability, we've already got some people that entered, okay? 6 days left, so this is going to close next Monday, and I'll explain. But you can enter all these different ways, and you get additional entries, okay? So it doesn't cost you anything. You can subscribe to my channel. You get 5 entries. Sign up for my email newsletter, which, by the way, I don't spam you every week. I only send the email newsletter out when I've got new stuff to talk about, okay? Visit my page on Facebook. Visit my Instagram. Tweet on Twitter. Share your giveaway with friends, which means you can do it via email, via social media. Visit the Hoodman USA website. These are all ways that you can get additional entries. So by law in the United States, all contests have to have a privacy policy, which there's a link right there. The contest rules, you can get to them in one of 2 ways. You can click on this tab, and if you want to read all the legal stuff, go ahead. There's a lot of it because that's what we need for contests, okay? And starting next week, all the winners will be listed here and kind of archived. If you're looking for that discount from Hunt's Photo and Video for the $20 off the Hoodman Loupe, click on this link right here, and that will take you to that, okay? And let's go back up to the top here a little bit. So the way this works, the contest is open now. You can go enter and start entering right now, right this minute. It will remain open all week. The contest closes at 6 p.m. next Monday. Then the winner will be drawn. I will announce the winner of the Hoodman set during next Monday's TogChat, and during next Monday's TogChat, I'll tell you what the next prize is, and you'll have a week to enter for that. I should be able, if everything goes well, and so far it is, I should be able to line up prizes for the next year. And my goal is to try and have prizes that are worth at least $100 each week, sometimes more. So I'll give you a little hint. We're probably going to be giving away a drone in a couple of months, so stay tuned, okay? But I've got some really cool companies coming on board. I will be able to tell you next week. I'll give you kind of a little teaser of some of the names of these companies, and there's a few more that I might be able to add to that list before next week. So get in there, enter it. You can enter every week. So even if you win this week, you can turn around and enter next week. The prizes are drawn completely randomly. In fact, I don't know the entries or any of that information until the final choices are made, and then I get all that information. So it's all managed offsite by a company called Gleam. Everything that you need is there. Now, I saw a couple people that went by, and a really good question, and this is a question I don't like the answer to, but I've got to be honest with you. The question is, can we do international? So as it stands right now, gang, and I'm hoping, please don't punish me for this, and please understand that I'm doing this as a solopreneur here, trying to make this work. Right at the moment, the contest is only open to the United States, and I'll explain why. I'll give you the simple version, but don't take my word for it. You can go Google this and find out, okay? Number one, the terms of service for YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter when it comes to these kind of contests are very, very, very strict. Add to that, there are extremely strict federal, state, and local laws in the United States for giveaways, sweepstakes, lotteries, and that kind of stuff. So you saw all that legalese in the terms and conditions. That's all the stuff that navigates all of that stuff. Believe me, it was a ton of work. There's been about 2 weeks worth of work getting all this information together and getting it set up properly and making sure that it kind of passes all the rules and regulations. The challenge with international giveaways are that, number one, YouTube, I won't say that they frown on them, but YouTube makes it very clear if you're going to do them, you better cross your T's and dot your I's and get it right. Every country has different laws. Add to that customs regulations and everything else. It's really, really challenging to do it and do it properly. There are companies out there that do giveaways internationally, but technically they're frequently breaking the law when they do it. Now it's a matter of at what point is somebody going to clamp down. So I hope you can understand, this is me, myself, and I. I don't have a staff of 50 people. I'm not a big corporation. I'm not funded from elsewhere. So I can't afford to be that guy that when somebody does decide to clamp down is on the wrong side of the tracks. That being said, for you international folks, I do have some things that I'm going to be able to kind of give away spontaneously, just spur of the moment during our upcoming TogChats for folks that are outside the US, but I can't run them as a sweepstakes or giveaway. It's just something that I'm going to do. Just so you know, in order for me to do that, I actually have to purchase the prizes, pay cash for them, which I'm going to do. And I can't have you do anything for the prizes. In other words, I can't require you to sign up for anything, none of that kind of stuff. So I know that's a lot more mumbo jumbo and legal stuff that you guys wanted to hear, but I wanted to be honest. I'm not just ignoring international folks because it's a big part of my audience, and I sincerely appreciate your support, but hopefully you can understand that I have to do it right. Otherwise, I run the risk of, getting myself in a lot of trouble. So please make sure you enter. It's kind of foolish if you don't. You got nothing to lose except a few seconds of your time. By all means, make sure you check out the Hoodman stuff. I have a feeling that a lot of you may not even be that familiar with Hoodman, actually. And if you're not familiar with them, I'll tell you right out of the box, that's a shame. You need to check them out. For outdoor shooting especially, you can't beat it. And if you have troubles with your eyesight or things like that, for anytime shooting, it's a great way to enlarge what's on the back of your LCD. Hoodman has a bunch of other products also that you can check out on their website. In fact, here, let me just switch back real quick and switch over to the Hoodman website. So this prize package this week is worth just over $100. Okay, the Hoodman Loupe itself is about $90. The link is another, 20 something, etc. So, but Hoodman themselves, they have a lot of products from the DSL. In fact, here, let me go out to their homepage. I can show you. They do a lot of stuff with drones, the drone landing pads. If you do video, they've got some great hood kits for being able to view monitors outdoors. Great company, great group of people that run it. I've been using, like I said, I've been using the Hoodman Loupe for years. The new ones are just awesome. I really, really enjoy them. So, Al B. Question, speaking of being a one-man show, and since you plan to grow your channel, does YouTube provide guidance about getting a moderator and some help producing the live show? How be 1, YouTube provides guidance. 2, I could do that tomorrow. 3, can I give you my address to send me the check to pay for that? I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to, okay? In time, I will have people help me out. But at this point, there's really no reason to pay people to help me out, okay? Yeah, I could do a really slick show like, Tony and Chelsea and then just ramble for an hour. Or I could do a show like, Frono's Photo, which I'm not really sure what they do for an hour. But I would like to try and keep mine more personal. So if it grows, Albie, sure. But just to give you, an idea, Al, right now I've got 95 people here, right at the moment, 95 people. That's not enough that's going to, get anybody to say, oh, let's throw money at TogChat so that he can hire a team, right? So that's part of why we're doing this. We're going to try and make it grow. But yeah, in the meantime, guys, you're stuck with me. That's, pretty much what it comes down to, okay? So please make sure you check them out. And PhotoFlex has another contest this week. Share your lighting. I'll get to that in a few minutes, but I want to dive into some questions, okay? So let me just see here yet. Make sure I didn't miss anything in these last few. Well, here's one real quick, and then I'll go to the other ones. So Mark Brooks, can the Interfit Honey Badgers be used with the Interfit S1S for product and still life portraits, or will they be too far apart in color consistency? Yeah, Mark, you're kind of being a techtographer with that question. So let me explain. I don't mean as an insult. Sorry. I have never in my career run into a noticeable major issue with color consistency between lights and all that kind of stuff. Keep in mind, I'm primarily a people photographer, okay? Some products, you have to be a little bit more cautious with that. But yeah, I can tell you that in terms of what you're going to readily notice, you're not going to notice a difference at all. Can I tell you factually that they're exactly the same color consistencies in that? I have no idea, but I'll gladly find out for you. If you want to message me after the show, I'll reach out to the folks at Interfit. And there's a good possibility. Every now and then, Steven from Interfit checks in, but I think he's traveling right now. So sometimes he's here. And if Steven's here, he will in all likelihood chime in with the answer and help us out with that. But if not, I will gladly get you the exact specs. But I can guarantee you that from the standpoint of practical application, you are not going to notice a difference at all. They're both great strobes. I have been incredibly impressed. I haven't used the S1s. Read about them. I know people personally that have used them. I can tell you that for the honey badgers, they have been incredibly consistent for me. And I tend to get a little quick on the draw in the studio, depending on what I'm shooting. So I'm not always giving the capacitors the time to, really charge up and sit and wait. I'm pushing them, and I've had no problems at all. The color consistency has been outstanding. So, okay. All right. So I got a couple questions here lined up, gang. If you have questions, load them in there. We still got like 40 minutes here. I would really hate to have nothing to talk about, because then I'll be back to telling stories, right? So, here's a question. It's I think we're going to take a little explanation here, but let's dive into it. Robert Julian typed in earlier. He's looking for some clarification. So I'm going to read this to you verbatim, okay? It's not that long. But if a DX lens is designed for the cropped image sensor, why is there still a crop factor applied? If the same crop factor is applied to FX and DX, why buy a DX lens? Okay. So, I can completely understand the confusion with that, Robert. For somebody that's kind of new to photography and just learning all that stuff, yeah, it's one of the many things in photography that are kind of like double speak and a little bit backwards as far as the way they're explained. So, let's start with the idea that yes, a 35 millimeter lens in a DX is the same as a 35 millimeter lens in an FX. However, it is possible, and it is done, to design a 35 millimeter DX lens that does not have a rear element that is big enough to cover a full frame sensor. Hence, DX lens. So basically, they're able to use less glass, smaller glass, etc., and have it work perfectly on the crop sensor, because it will cover the sensor in the distance that the light has to travel from the rear element of the lens to the sensor. But if you put that same lens on a full frame lens, it's going to vignette like crazy, because it can't cover it. It doesn't spread enough. So that's essentially what's happening there. The crop factor thing is really just a way of relating that you are going to get a similar appearance to what you would have with the lens. It's 1.5 times the power. Okay. So I hope that helps. If you are fairly new to the game, but you are passionate about it and you see yourself growing and doing, bigger, better down the road and possibly moving up to a full frame camera, then I would encourage you, the next lenses or lens that you buy for your DX camera, buy an FX lens. They will cost you more money. But let's just say hypothetically you're a Nikon user, which, by the way, if you switch to Micro Four Thirds, you don't have to worry about any of that crap. Just saying, okay? But if you are a Nikon user, hypothetically, and you're using a Nikon DX camera, an APS-C camera, maybe it's like the D500 or one of the 7000 series or the 5000 series, then if you think you're going to want to go full frame later, my advice to you would be buy full frame lenses. That way, when you jump up to maybe like a D750 or a D810 or a D850, then you're not going to have to replace all of your glass. The downside, the glass is a lot more expensive. So that's really the, kind of the bigger difference that you're dealing with there. Okay. So I hope that helps. Hope that makes a little bit more sense, but that's the answer. Okay. So Sado or Sado, whichever, I hope I didn't mess that up too bad. Question regarding a light meter for flash photography. Yes or no? That's his question. Then he goes on to say, if yes, is a basic one like the Sekonic 308 or a more advanced one like the Sekonic 478 the better plan? So answer is yes, right? You already saw me pull mine out tonight. And this is, by the way, this is the 308. This is the 308SU, okay? So here's my answer. This is not an answer that everyone will agree with, but I think you'll understand it's a very practical answer. In an ideal scenario, in other words, kind of perfect world, if you have the money, absolutely buy a flash meter. It will help you to be more accurate and more consistent with your exposures when using flash. So best practices, flash meter all the way. Now, let's also apply some practical thinking to that. We live in a world with digital technology where we get instant feedback on the viewfinder, or I should say in the viewfinder or on the LCD screen of our cameras, depending on what kind of camera you have. So that means we have the luxury to not walk away from a shot when we're using strobes and have it be, underexposed. Okay. So all that being said, it is very possible to work at a consistently high level without a flash meter, provided that you pay attention to the details, really make it a point, adjust your lights, do a test shot, check your image, analyze it carefully, et cetera, et cetera. If you are working on a limited budget, you could completely get by without using a flash meter. Now, when you're talking between the 308 and the 478, if you're just starting out, it's your first flash meter, and if you're doing mostly still work, then I would encourage you go with the 308. Absolutely. It's a ton cheaper, and it works just great. I actually have a 478. You may have seen it in some of my videos. The primary reason I have the 478 is that I owned that before this one. And it's much more versatile. I have the one that's got the Pocket Wizard triggers built into it, which ironically I don't use Pocket Wizards anymore, but it's got the Pocket Wizard trigger built into it. It also does metering for cine and movie making and all that kind of stuff, in addition to flash and ambient light. So it's a little bit more versatile. But for still work, this is really all I need. This will do ambient light. It'll do the flash. It's good to go. But, that's it. So I've been very thrilled with this meter. Serves my purposes really well. It's small enough profile, light enough, etc. I don't really have to worry about damaging things, all that kind of stuff. So I'm a big fan of that one. That would be my recommendation. Okay. So Al B, his question is, a cheap set of 3 Vivitar 283s and triggers. For small studio using softboxes in all 3, do you still use the thermistors inside or outside of the softboxes? Thanks. So the cool part is, I'll bet a lot of people here don't know what thermistors is. It's a fancy word for a sensor. The Vivitar 283s actually have these are old flashes, folks, but in my opinion, they're really awesome flashes. They have basically a removable sensor that you could then put on the end of a cable. So you could mount your sensor, because these flashes, there's no TTL, there was no through the lens stuff, none of that. You can mount your sensor on a hot shoe and then have the flash off camera, and it would, read the reflected light back to the camera. Albie, my advice would be to not use the thermistors, use them on manual, and then you don't have to worry about removing the thermistor at all. You're basically just going to use the strobes on manual. The problem is, if you're going to use multiple 283s, each thermistor is dedicated specifically to a flash. And if you're going to put them in soft boxes, they're not going to read the light properly at all, because let's say you've got 2 lights, and what's going to happen is the thermistor in one is going to read the light coming from the other one, and it's going to shut that one down, so you're not really going to get a lot of light from it. Okay, so you want to go manual all the way and adjust your power accordingly. And the great part about manual with 283s, it couldn't be much simpler, because it's a full burst each time. It's the same amount of light. So how do you adjust your ratios? Simply by moving the lights. It's about as basic as it comes. One little tip though, Albie, do not, under any circumstances, put those 283 flashes on the hot shoe of your camera and fire it. It will not end well, okay? When the 283s were made, the circuitry in them and the circuitry in the cameras was much different than it is now. Today's cameras do not play well with the 283s. So unless you want to fry your camera, you do not use a 283 on a hot shoe, ever. Really, really bad plan, okay? Cathal has a question here, and then I'll catch up with these last few new ones here that have been put in. So regarding liquefy, when would you use it and when would you not use it? Would you tell your client that you have made them skinnier? So the two key words in that question, Cathal, liquefy and client. Those are really the two key words there. So liquefy is a great tool. Let's start there. Liquefy is especially great if you have a God complex and you just want to change everything. Like, it's awesome. But since we're talking about client, you shouldn't do anything without telling them, or at least at a minimum, shouldn't do anything they're going to notice. Okay, because then you run the risk of offending people. I mean, I would have to argue anyone at this point, and I don't mean this as an insult in any way, but let's be real, okay? Any photographer that in today's world would go ahead and liquefy something for a client, like a paid client, without discussing it with a client first, is really pretty much an idiot. Because you have to be living with your head under a rock. Like every other day we're seeing stories, especially in the photography blogs, about, this client's all freaked out and started this massive social media campaign or sued this photographer because they liquefied them and they made them, it was like they called it fat shaming. There was just a thing about that bridal couple that happened to, and they made this big fuss about being fat shamed. Okay. And then to be clear, I don't want to sound cavalier. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying it's happening now. This is the world we live in. So, we've got this tool that on one hand, it's really cool, but on the other hand, it does have implications in terms of how it's going to make somebody feel about their self-image. And that's something that we do have to respect, right? So, the way I always express it is if I'm shooting a model and that model has signed a release and they're shooting for me, I'll do whatever the hell I want to do with the picture. Done. Okay, that's up to me. That's why they've signed the release. If I'm shooting for a client, somebody paid me and they want like a picture for social media or whatever. Well, if I'm feeling that, hey, this would look so much better if I tuck their stomach a little bit because it's looking kind of sloppy. No, I'm sorry. That's something that I need to have a conversation with them. Okay. And literally what I would do if we were in the proof stage, I would just show them the images as is, and then I would go ahead and float the question and say, so, obviously with Photoshop, there's a lot we can do in terms of retouching or manipulating. Is there anything that you want me to do? And if you're smart as a business person for a photographer, understand that it takes you time to do liquefy work, right? So after you say, is there anything that you would want me to do? You've opened the door without saying, hey, do you want me to make you skinnier? Because that's the whole point. You're avoiding saying that. Once you've done that, you're opening the door to give them the opportunity to say, hey, can you make my stomach thinner? And at that point, you could say, sure, that usually takes about 45 minutes. So I have to charge you X amount of dollars for that additional service. So, if you're doing it for free, you're doing business for fun, and doing business for fun, you're not paying your bills, right? So, but I would not go ahead and make the change if it's for a client unless they have approved it or requested it, or you have found a very tactful way to converse with them about it. That would be my advice. Okay. All right. So let's see. Timothy Hines, I've heard that you tend to get more motion blur using higher resolution sensor cameras, the A7R3, for example. Do you know if this is true, and why would that be the case? Timothy, I'll be honest. I don't know if it's true. And I don't know why it would be the case, and I kind of don't care. Because here's the thing, right? Maybe you do. Let's just say hypothetically do. And I know now that question's there, there's going to be 15 people who are going to weigh in here and say, no, that doesn't happen with Sony. I don't care what camera we're talking about. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, you're only going to get motion blur if you're not using the proper settings. Like, the key phrase in your sentence, honestly, and again, I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but I'm going to be a little tough because I really, my goal is to get people focused on the more productive aspects of photography. Really, okay? All this YouTube stuff is cool, but come on, if you're not really out there doing it, you're not getting anywhere. So here's the thing. I've heard that you tend to. That usually equates to, I saw it posted 3 times in a Facebook group, or I saw 3 Facebook or YouTube videos where somebody talked about it. So, advice number 1, if for some reason you think that that is such a major problem, I would encourage you to go rent one before you buy it and try it. Because, especially if you're in the United States, and based on your name, I'm going to guess that you probably are in the United States, you can rent a camera dirt cheap. Even the Sony a7R III, you can rent them really inexpensively. So rent one for like 3 days, try it out, and then go from there. But at the end of the day, if you are using proper shutter speed and ISO combinations, then it's not a factor. And it's not going to be apparent. Maybe it will be apparent if you are pushing the envelope and not shooting at speeds that are going to assure you that that's not a problem. See, you guys got to remember, I come from the film days where none of this stuff was a problem. And it wasn't a problem because we didn't have digital. It wasn't a problem because we simply followed the principles of photography and we learned. We didn't expect the camera to do the work for us. I mean, I'll admit, like my Olympus cameras, this thing has a feature that it's cool. I mean, it's really cool, but I still don't trust myself to use it. 5-axis image stabilization. So 5-axis image stabilization, I can actually drop 5 shutter speeds slower than I normally would to hand hold an image. And you know what? It works. It works wickedly well. And it's a combination of the fact that it's, in body, in lens stabilization. Add to that, the autofocus system in this camera is so wickedly fast. It's amazing what it does. But at the end of the day, I don't feel comfortable letting essentially a computer, right? That's what these cameras are. They're computers that take pictures. I don't feel comfortable letting a computer do that work for me. I am a control freak as a photographer. I want the control. So I'm simply not going to shoot at settings that are going to have me risking that motion blur. Done. And then problem solved. If I'm shooting a 500th of a second, I'm not going to get motion blur, right? I'm just not. So, or 1,000th of a second, whatever, depending on what you're shooting. But so for me, that's really the approach that I take. And I tend not to worry about that stuff. Because half the time, these conversations that you see online and even these videos, it's people blowing off a bunch of steam, and they're really not necessarily showing you proof. And oftentimes, if you pay close attention, what they're photographing and the way that they photograph is much different than what you're photographing and the way you photograph. So it's kind of like irrelevant information, and then you get stuck on it. So best choice, rent the camera, and then just use proper settings, and it's really not an issue at all, right? So, and I would argue that if you have yourself a situation where you're constantly pushing the envelope with what the camera's capabilities are, then you're probably looking to buy the wrong camera. Buy a camera that's going to satisfy your needs and cover the capabilities that you want. So that's not a diss on Sony, folks. That's just saying, like, look, if you're saying, well, the a7R III kind of checks off all my boxes except for this, well, then don't buy that camera. Find a camera that checks off all the boxes. Done. Okay? It may be Sony, maybe it's not. I don't know. But for me, I don't see that being an issue at all, if that is a real thing with the Sony. Okay? So let's see here. Ronald, scenario, wedding reception. Room has more than one type of lighting, say tungsten and CFL. I want to retain some of the room in the photos, but I'm using flash on subjects. How to gel my lights? For me, Ronald, I wouldn't gel your lights. I would work at a slow shutter speed so that you're using some of that ambient light to get various color shifts in the background, and then using your strobe to make sure that you're lighting your subjects with a proper balance. So that way you're basically going to set your daylight balance. Either you could set it to the flash setting or set it for daylight setting, but basically balance to the strobe, and then let that ambient light bring a little bit of color into the background. Otherwise, you're going to wind up just having the light fall off into darkness, and all the lights kind of even and similar. So many weddings today, especially if it's a bigger wedding, not only do they have DJs, but the DJs come in with full lighting packages. So they've got the walls of the rooms lit up in purple and blue and all kind of stuff. For me, I would take advantage of that. Take advantage of that. Work at a slightly slower shutter speed and use that ambient light, then bring your flash in to make sure that you're lighting your subjects. That's the way that I would do it. I find CTOs, obviously CTOs work, and if you need everything to be perfect, then that's going to be the only way to go, okay? And if the room's got both types of lighting, you're going to have to pick one if everything's got to be perfectly balanced. But I would argue that perfectly balanced for wedding, it's actually really boring. So you can take advantage of those color shifts from the tungsten and from the fluorescent to, really be able to add a little bit of oomph to the overall color scheme of your image. That's the way that I would approach it. Okay. Let's see here. Frank Beckman. Yeah. And again, the whole pixel blur thing, man, it's not an issue if you are using the cameras at the proper settings, period. It's just not. Okay. Gregory, could you please ask Interfit if they will have a Canadian distributor for the Honey Badger strobe when you reach out to them? Thanks in advance. Well, I'll do you one better, Gregory. I will ask them. And I will get back to you next week. And if I can't get an answer next week, because I know Steven is doing a whole lot of traveling right now because WPPI is coming up and he's been back and forth to China. I'm probably not supposed to say this, but I'll say it anyway. Interfit's coming out with a ton of new products. A ton. Now getting in big trouble. But it's happening within the next 3 weeks. So cool stuff. I know what a few of them are. I don't know what most of them are. But Interfit's going to be at WPPI, so if I can't find out beforehand, I will get an answer at WPPI. So please make sure that in case I don't report back here on TogChat, you ask me again on TogChat, and I'll get the answer, okay? If I'm not mistaken, they do have a way to get them in Canada right now, but I know that in terms of the proper channels, Canada is actually one of the countries that's really tough for doing all the importing and exporting stuff with. I know for a fact that Interfit is working on it, so I can tell you that much. I know that they've applied for all of the proper, permits and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know what the time frame is, so that's what I'll check on. Okay. All right. Daryl Roberts, 4:3 is the aspect ratio. Are there other options? I'm not sure which camera you're talking about. And Daryl, if I missed an earlier comment or question of yours, I'm sorry. So fill me in again. With my Olympus, I can do 3:2. I can do 4:3. I can do 16:9. I think I can actually even do 1:1 if I want to shoot square. It will do all those, but yeah, give me a little bit more context there. Robert Julian, I see Peak Design anchors on your camera. Yes, that's these guys right here. I have a Peak Design sling as well, but it keeps slipping on me. I take it you're not having the same problem. So I don't, because what I actually do is I actually staple and tape mine. So literally, once I have them adjusted to the height or length that I want, I actually put just a simple office staple through them, and I run blue tape, which you've seen them. If you watch close, you've seen them in my videos a few times. However, more often than not, I don't use the straps at all. So what I've been using a lot lately, and I'll be showing it in a video soon, I've been using Spider Holster. Has a newer system for the mirrorless cameras. It's called Spider Light. So it's smaller. It's not as bulky as the Spider Holsters for the Canons and the Nikons. I've been loving them big time. Because when I'm in the studio, I shoot tethered. And a lot of times I like to be able to shoot tethered, but I don't like to use a tripod. So I still want to be mobile, and I don't want to keep putting the camera down. So I use the tether block, which you've seen in my videos. And Spider Holster, obviously they make the clamps that go on the bottom of the cameras that has the pin, but they also make just the pins with a 1/4-20 thread on them. The tether block has a 1/4-20 thread. So I take the Spider Pro pin, thread that into the tether block, and then that locks right into the Spider Light holster, and it's really nice. I mean, it's between that and then using the Hoodman link for my meter, it's both guns ready on either side. I love it. So, but I will say, all in all, I like the Peak Design. I like the weight and the size of their straps, but and Peak Design, I'm not sponsored by them or anything. They'd probably be upset to hear me talk about stapling and taping it. I don't adjust mine all the time. Obviously, one of their big selling points is you can grab that little tab and you can adjust it really easy. So bottom line is, it shouldn't slip. So honestly, what I would suggest is reach out to them and email their customer service and tell them what kind of problem you're having. It's possibly you have a bad one, or maybe you're doing something wrong. So if it's not working for you, don't just kind of suck it up. definitely reach out and contact them. I'm sure, I've never heard anything bad about the company, so I'm sure that they would be, more than glad to, to help out. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Elliot McKinstry. I want to get some lighting for portraits. Strobes are out of my price range and I don't have the space for them. I want to get at least 2 speed lights. Should I get TTL, manual, or both? Well, Elliot, here's the thing. If you're going to do portraits, my sincere advice to you, and this will get a lot of people back against the wall, but I'm telling you from my years of experience, if you're going to do portraits, don't do it on TTL. You're actually going to have more control by working on the manual side. However, since you're working with speedlights, keep in mind speedlights are very, very versatile. So there may be times where you want to use one of those speedlights on camera or just off camera, like on a bracket, like a wedding photographer does. Or there may be times that you want to use those speedlights and have 2 of them like in the corner of a room to light a room. And you're not going to put them in soft boxes like you would for portraits. In those situations, the TTL feature is a great feature. So my advice to you would be go with the speedlights. You don't have to have studio strobes. Probably go with a flash that has TTL, but I wouldn't buy it because of the TTL, because I would plan for my portraits to use it on manual. So I think really what it comes down to also is what brand are you looking at and what features does it have available? If you're on a limited budget, your challenge is try and find a brand that you can afford. Because I will tell you this, you could take very nice portraits, Elliot, with 1 light and a reflector. I have a whole bunch of videos on my channel about shooting portraits with 1 light and a reflector. So my sincere advice to you is do your research on flash brands, speedlight flash brands. Decide, and just leave price out of the equation initially. Initial part of the research, no price. Decide which brand you like and you feel is going to be the best fit for you, right? Start there. If you can buy 2 of them right away, buy 2 of them. If you can only afford 1, buy 1 and get a cheap reflector. Get a Walmart reflector. They cost $1. If you don't know what a Walmart reflector is, go to my YouTube channel. And in the search bar, in the YouTube channel, just type in Walmart reflector. You'll find it, okay? And start using that and master it. Master it to the point that you're just bored to death with it because you can do everything possible with 1 light and you need another light to start changing your lighting. All the while, you're saving money towards that 2nd light. What you're going to wind up with then, it's going to take you a little bit longer, but you're going to wind up with a 2-light system with 2 really good strobes that do all the things you need them to do, as opposed to having 2 cheap strobes that you're ultimately going to outgrow very quickly because they're not powerful enough or they don't have all the features you want. And then you're going to find yourself immediately wanting something better and nicer. So, I totally understand the idea of wanting to have multiple strobes to do portraits, but I assure you, you can do really, really nice portraits with 1 light. Okay, so that would be my recommendation. So let's see here. Along with the liquefy question from Gary, what about face aware to make both of the eyes equal if one is smaller, even after putting the smaller one closer to the lens? So the whole thing about, which is the right side of the face and having one eye smaller and all that kind of stuff, understand that the goal is not to have a person be completely symmetrical, because if you do that, you've just created an alien. And you can actually look up this thing called the uncanny valley. It's actually a psychological term in the way we process faces. So you never want both eyes to be exactly the same size. You just don't, because there's no human being that has, if you ever meet the person that's got 2 eyes exactly the same size and their face is symmetrical, you should probably not run. You should probably not walk. You should probably run in the other direction, because it means the aliens have literally landed. They're here, okay? But yet the bizarre part of it is while no human is symmetrical, one of the primary markers of the way our brains perceive beauty is symmetry. Okay. There's a whole lot of cognitive psychology there. It's real stuff. I'm not making it up. All right. That being said, use the face aware liquefy to get the eyes very similar in size, but don't worry about getting them exact, because then you're making a face that's not real. So, it's kind of the all good things in moderation plan is basically what we're looking at here. So, okay. Let's see. Frank Beckman, if you have enough light, which should you have if you bring your own light? You can use high enough shutter speeds to have no problems with blur. Which you should, if you have enough, so I'm sorry, let me read that again because I completely missed that. if you have enough light, which you should have if you bring your own light, you can use high enough shutter speeds to have no problems with blur. It occurs if you have to use veil light. Oh, okay, I get it, Frank. Is that still the follow-up on that whole motion blur thing there with the Sony? Yeah. Life's beautiful. When is the right time to use a lens hood? I've heard varying opinions on this, from the importance of sunny weather to only in backlit situations. What say you? My reason is neither of what you recommended. My answer is always use lens hoods all the time, without exception. You want to know why? Of course you want to know why. So for me, and this, by the way, this is not an Olympus problem. I had the same problem on Nikon, for all these years too. So short lens, my finger's going to wind up on the lens, or I'm going to reach for the camera and I'm going to grab the lens and I'm going to smudge it, and then I got to clean the doggone lens. Okay. With a lens hood, I can't get my fingers to the lens. Okay, I can reach for the camera. Even if I grab it awkwardly, I'm not touching the lens. And here's the other bonus. If I'm walking around with the camera on my shoulder, if even it's in my hands, and I bang by something, I have now banged my filter and, potentially messed with the threads of the filter and the camera lens. If I bang the lens hood, different lens hoods are attach different ways. And the nice part about these Olympus hoods is they don't attach directly into the filter threads. So I'm not touching the filter threads at all. But even if you have a lens, a lot of the Nikon lenses go right into the, the hoods go right into the filter thread. You're still, that hood is taking some of that beating. So for me, the answers that you were given, okay. The answers that you were given, with regards to sometimes you use it for backlighting, sometimes you use it for flare, they're not incorrect. Meaning, yeah, there are times where it's helpful with flare. There are times where it's helpful with, backlighting, all that kind of stuff. But I like to have them really just to avoid getting smudges on my lens and to help prevent damaging my lenses, period. That's the biggest reason. So for me, every lens I own, every lens I've owned for the last, 20, 30 years, has always had a lens hood. Right now, the only lens I own actually, I own two lenses without lens hoods in the Olympus line. One is the 30mm macro, and that is only because the actual front element sits really deep into the lens, so there was really no need to. And that's a lens that I don't use a lot. In fact, I've only used it once in the time that I've had the Olympus gear, so that's not like a go-to lens for me. And then the other one is I have the little 9mm Olympus pancake lens, which it's literally like a they call it a lens cap lens. Okay, it's basically a lens with a lens cap built into it, and so it's so short. Like, yeah, it's got no filter threads or anything, so I don't have a hood on that. But other than that, yeah, I'm all about lens hoods. So let's see here. Steven Stiles, what are your thoughts on Fuji purchasing Xerox? Do you think Nikon will now buy Starbucks? Guys, here's the reality of this photography stuff, okay? You've got a new player in the market. So, the answers to your question, Stephen, like, you got to go back and look at a little history, and then it actually becomes pretty clear as to what's going on. So, we had Roderick, they still have those collapsible lens hoods around. They're still around. So, Stephen, the problem you have is that, when digital technology came out, a lot of the smaller companies kind of disappeared. Fuji disappeared for a long time. Pentax, off the radar. Ricoh, off the radar. All of these companies that are now coming back with digital cameras, they were kind of doing nothing or just floundering, randomly, okay? Fuji was doing stuff out there for a while now, but it's only been recently that Fuji started to really build out a system and really kind of, shall we say, get back in the game. But the problem of it is, you pretty much had market saturation with Canon and Nikon, and then along comes Sony. And now Sony has, opened up things even more. So the problem that a lot of these companies are having is there's a lot of competition. You add to that, you've got the Micro Four Thirds with, Olympus, and then there's Panasonic, and all this, there's just a ton of competition. So the reality of it is, a lot of these companies, if it was just cameras, they wouldn't exist. And obviously you realize Fuji does more than just make cameras. Even before buying Xerox, Fuji does more than that, okay? You know, Nikon stays alive because of their medical equipment and things like binoculars and stuff like that. Even Olympus has a whole medical division that is a highly profitable division of their company. Even Sony, cameras amount for a very small piece of Sony's revenue, okay? So sadly, you know, in the business realm, dollars and cents, you know, money, we photographers, we're not as important as we like to think we are to these companies, because ultimately their survival, it's actually not relying on photography. It's relying on other product lines that they have. So, you know, I will admit, I can see certain synergies. I don't know what their reason is or what their stated reason is for getting, you know, Xerox, but I can see certain, you know, synergies along the way. You know, as far as Nikon and Starbucks, yeah, you know, to me, it would kind of make sense. You ready? Here comes the zingers. You should have seen this one coming. You know, Starbucks is like the most expensive cup of coffee you can buy. It's a good fit for Nikon, right? There you go. So anyway, just kidding. So, yeah, but in terms of what their whole game plan is, hard to say. So let's see. Mike Hardy. Oh, you know what? Wait, real quick. Before I do Mike's question, I forgot PhotoFlex. Can't forget PhotoFlex. So listen, this is like a long-standing thing that I got going here. Let me bring it up so that I can show you guys. Every week on Facebook, let me switch the screens. Here it is. PhotoFlex runs a contest. It's called the Share Your Lighting Contest, okay? And basically what you do is you submit 2 photos to them via email. In fact, let me get you guys the email address here. The email address is tellus@PromarkBrands. And so you send your 2 pictures. One is your finished shot, and the other one is a behind the scenes photo that shows how you set up the picture, okay? This week, they draw the prize on Wednesday morning. So you've got tonight and tomorrow to get your entries in. This week, they're giving away a 12-foot muslin background. You get your choice between gray or black, okay? This contest is important to me for one reason and one reason only. You guys know that I have a Facebook group. Well, I mean, I like PhotoFlex. It's the brand that I use. But you know that I have a Facebook group. My Facebook group and the members of my Facebook group have been, like, cleaning up on this contest. And a big part of that is because in the Facebook group, we encourage people to take pictures behind the scenes. For all of you that are just learning lighting, and a bunch of people tonight asked me like beginner questions, getting into lighting and portraits and studio lighting, take behind the scenes pictures of everything you do for a long time. Why do you do that? So you can post it on YouTube and look cool? No. So that you can go back after you've done something and firsthand review how you did it. Review what worked, review what didn't work. So here's the cool part, okay? To win this PhotoFlex contest, you don't have to use PhotoFlex gear. So how many other companies out there are going to give you prizes in a contest where you're not even using or showing their gear, all right? So finished picture, behind the scenes picture, submit it by Wednesday to tellus@promarkbrands.com. The link for their Facebook page is there. Also, check them out. But I would love to see another one of my followers win the contest this week, okay? So a couple other real quick pieces of business there, gang, before we get going here. I showed you guys the page on my website. That's the tog.chat/win, where you can enter the contest. In fact, here, since we've been online, it was at 55 before we started. Let's just see if anybody's been entering. Oh, we got 247 entries in all this time. So that's good. We got a bunch of people that are entering. So remember, this contest will be open until next Monday. I'll announce the winner on next Monday's TogChat, and then also let you know what the prize is for the following week. If you are anxious, don't think you have good luck, can't win the contest, all that kind of stuff, you can get $20 off the Hoodman HoodLoupe by following this link. Also, just so you know it's there, 2 more things on my website, and then we'll get to those last couple of questions here. Robert Julian, the PhotoFlex contest is currently available to international contestants. So yes, if you're outside the US, you can enter the contest, okay? A lot of the companies that I'm involved with or that I work with or wind up honestly just meeting at some of these conventions like WPPI and Imaging USA are willing to offer discounts to my viewers. So I have a page here. It's at joeedelman.com/discounts. If you don't remember that, just mouse over the contacts link on my website. You can see it there, and you'll see industry discounts. You can get 10% off all the Interfit products if you're looking for honey badgers or the S1s or the S1As. You want a bobblehead doll? You guys have seen this. You saw in the beginning, right? My bobblehead doll. Yeah, my wife loves this. You have no idea. So anyway, you can get your own bobblehead doll made. The Satellite 3D software, free web hosting at format.com, and a whole bunch of discounts from Hunt Camera in New England, and a whole bunch more coming. Make sure you check out that page. And last piece on my website, a lot of you have been asking me about speaking engagements. So I finally have this piece set up on the website, and this is actually being added to daily right now. So if you click on the lectures and workshops, you see a little calendar by the words there. Here is my speaking schedule as it stands right now for the remainder of the year. So I'm going to be in Las Vegas later this month. Next month in March, I'm going to be in Salem, Massachusetts. I'm going to be in Callicoon, New York, Westchester, New York. In June, I'm going to be out in Chicago for Out at Chicago. In May, I'm skipping around here. In May, I'm going to be down in Fort Worth, Texas for the Fort Worth Camera Photo Fest. And I'll be in Newark, Delaware in November for the Horizon Photography Summit. So basically, any of these that are here, you can click on them, and then you get all the details, how to sign up, links to the website information, all that kind of stuff. So I am hoping, seriously, that I get to meet all of you in the next year. That is my goal. I would love to meet as many YouTube subscribers as I possibly can. Okay. So let's see here. Mike Hardy had a question. Make sure I didn't lose it. There it is. When you shoot in the studio, do you feather lighting, use the edges of the modifier, or more straight on? Mike, it depends on what I'm doing. And again, this is one of the things where you got to be careful of all the stuff that you see on YouTube. Meaning, the idea of feathering light, it's just a tool. In my honest opinion, it's kind of overplayed right now, meaning that everybody says, oh, feather light, but they don't really truly understand why they're doing it. They just see Peter Hurley do it or somebody else do it. It's like, oh, I need to do that. I am planning a video that will kind of break it down from a more practical standpoint. But it is definitely kind of one of the cool things to do that everybody's in. If you're kind of looking for what is my preferred methodology, I probably 1/3 of the time would estimate that I will feather my lights. Otherwise, I'm usually going fairly straight on. Now, straight on doesn't necessarily mean right at the subject this way, but from an angle or, but the idea of feathering where you're, kind of bringing the box forward or backwards and using just the edge of the light kicking out, probably only about 1/3 of the time, is when I'm doing that. So, all right, let's see. JR, even though cameras aren't the big revenue, Sony pulled out of South Africa years ago due to not enough sales before mirrorless, and they're only coming back now. And yeah, I mean, hey, gang, at the end of the day, companies exist to make money, right? I mean, so we always have to understand, as much as we oftentimes don't like the business decisions they're making, if they don't make decisions that are wise for them from a business standpoint, well, then they're not going to be around for very long. So when you're on kind of the sucky end of that decision, it sucks, but, So Ronaldo, see you at WPPI. Looking forward to it, man. Make sure you check my schedule because I'll be at the Olympus booth. I'm doing 6 talks at Olympus. So I'll be spending a lot of time at the Olympus booth, but I'm also doing 2 talks at the Interfit booth and their demos. So in all of my talks, there'll be models. I'll be shooting. Should be a lot of fun. And the Olympus one especially, I do a lot of things that don't make sense, meaning they're the kinds of things, lighting tricks and stuff like that I love to show off because they're counterintuitive. They're the type of stuff that you wouldn't normally do with lighting. And of course, you know me, I like to prove that you can do it. I'll give you an example. If you're all familiar with mag mods, which I really like the mag mod speed light modifiers, they have one called the mag bounce, which is this big white silicone like half shell, which is meant to bounce and distribute light. I'll show you during my talk at Olympus how you can take that mag mod, turn it backwards, flip the light around, and I'll turn it into a beauty dish for obviously a lot less money than a beauty dish, and put it on a speed light and give you the exact same kind of light that you get with a beauty dish. So a lot of cool little stuff like that you'll be able to walk away from my demo and actually use the stuff. None of what I'm going to do at WPPI is like razzle dazzle, look how cool this is. It's all stuff you can walk out of WPPI and go and try it yourself. People asked about me getting this talk recorded while I was in Nashville. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it in Nashville. But the good news is it's going to get recorded in Vegas. So if you're not going to make it WPPI, which you should, but if you're not, there will be recording and I will be able to post it on YouTube. I've gotten permission from Olympus and their marketing people and everything. They've been really good about it. So we're going to be able to post that and show it off. So, so let's see here. We're still talking about lens hoods, Fire Angel under surely any TTL speed light can be used in manual mode as well. Not necessarily. I mean, overwhelmingly so, yes. If a TTL flash will work in manual, but as we see here, Frank's got one that actually is TTL only. So, yeah, that's an assumption we kind of don't want to make. So, cathode bow, strip light, one light setup. Do you keep the light high, aiming downwards to avoid shadows on the nose? That's a question that I won't answer for you, Catho. Bottom line is you're looking for a rule that you can go and use all the time. So here's my, and there is no rule all the time. So here's my lighting rule. Let's assume that, I'll use my phone. Let's assume this is the front of the softbox and here's my subject's head. So you notice right now, I've got my subject's head at about 2/3 of the light above the head and 1/3 below the head. Okay. The mistake a lot of people make is they take the head and they put it right in the middle, like so, like that. So the problem now is you've got half of the light coming from below and half of the light coming from above. And of course, you're not going to put it that close, but even if it's here, if you put the head in the middle, you're getting light from above, light from below, and you're not really getting natural light. And when I say natural, I mean light that makes sense to the brain. By age 2, cognitive psychological fact, by age 2, our brains are basically trained. We expect light to come from above. Okay. That's why when they make zombie movies, they put the light underneath the zombies, right? Okay. So you generally, for me, I generally put 2/3 of the light above, 1/3 below. As far as angling it, it depends on what I'm doing, because understand when I angle it, now the top of the box is closer to the subject than the bottom of the box. So that means that the inverse square law comes into play and I'm actually getting very different lighting from the top than I am the bottom. So there's no rule. It depends on exactly what you're trying to do. If you're asking me that question, Cathal, my sincere advice is get a mannequin, or for that matter, sit a book in a chair and actually just do test shots and experiment. Try the different things and you know, look at the results that you're getting, because that's the best way you're going to learn it. But don't, when you ask a question like that, any answer that anybody gives you, you have to understand, other than the one I just gave you, but you have to understand the answer that they're going to give you is based on what they like to do. And that's not the right way to learn how to do lighting. The right way to learn how to do lighting is to learn and understand what that modifier is going to do in different situations. So in order to do that, you have to create the situations. That's how you're going to make it work. Dan Hilton, you're going to be at WPPI too. Awesome, man. Looking forward to it. So, Dive Wizard, feathering is a standard way to light underwater because you don't want the light to, yeah, well, there is that. Yeah, and that makes sense. I've never shot underwater, but that would totally make sense. So, X10th Gear X, recent sub. Welcome. I've been binge watching all your recent content, found your channel trying to find cheap studio lighting. My question is, are those LED shop lights still a good solution? Yeah, man, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with them at all. I still use them in numerous scenarios. I have gone on to say, which I think I actually mentioned in that video, but I have gone on to say that between the fluorescent ones that I make and between the LED ones that I make, the fluorescent ones are, I would say, have an edge in terms of being my more favorite. But as you can see in the video, I've generated great light with those LED ones. They work wonderfully. So yeah, I mean, if that's a solution that you're looking to build, the big bonus with the LEDs, of course, is that you don't have the flicker issue. You know, from a CRI standpoint, they're more than adequate CRI. They're not super high CRI, but they're more than adequate for photographing people. You know, they'll work out great for you. Okay. All right, gang. So, JR, love the gels from Magmont. Yeah, the Magmont stuff is great. You'll be seeing a lot more of that in videos coming up. I've got the whole Magmont set, and I'm gonna be putting that stuff to use. Okay. All right, gang. So listen, I'm gonna end close to on time tonight. We're gonna try and, like, you know, get this together. So remember, a couple of important things here. Number one, all right. Don't forget about our friends at Hoodman. They're providing the prize this week. Down at the bottom of the screen, you see it there, tog.chat/win. If you're in this country, make sure you enter the contest, okay? I would love to see you guys win the prize. And by the way, you know, if you're looking for an alternative to the big guys like B&H and Adorama, check out Hunt's Photo and Video in New England. I'll tell you this, and it's not a sales pitch. I don't get paid. They're not paying me any money. They are kind enough to provide me the discounts that I'm offering, but those are not affiliate links. I don't get money from them. Check out Hunt's, and better yet, if you have questions or needs, contact them. Either email them or call them. Super top-notch company when it comes to customer service. They're also a company that gives a lot back to the photography community. I can tell you firsthand that Gary Farber from Hunt's, he's the guy that handles all their marketing. He's the co-owner of the company. He travels all over the country for Hunt's, sponsors tons of photographers, giving presentations and talks to camera clubs, PPA groups, all that stuff. So it's a retailer that's honestly, they're really doing things the right way. Okay. And believe me, if you have questions or that kind of stuff, you definitely want to check them out. So again, also, if you haven't seen the video this week, you got a double chin, you need to get rid of it. Here's the video. This is the first in a series of posing videos that's coming up. And there will be more to hopefully give you a little bit of a better idea of not only how to solve some of these posing issues, but also kind of the banter, the way that you want to give directions, etc. Okay? All right, gang. So listen, you know the drill. It's been my thing all year this year. All right? Please, I appreciate your being here. It's been a great night. We've had some great questions. But if you've been here for the whole night, that means you owe me an hour and 10 minutes times 2. So 2 hours and 20 minutes of shooting this week. Okay? So have a great week. I appreciate all of you for spending the time with me. And please remember these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now go pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.